You are now listening to Abstract Thought. This is a podcast where artists and creatives discuss some of their like business practice, creative journey, etc. And today I'm sitting down with North Carolina's Jeks. How you doing, man?
Good. Very good. How are you, man?
I'm chilling, dude. I'm chilling. I've been a super big fan of your work for a long time. Not just fine art, but your graffiti stuff as well is super clean cut and aggressive. And from a graffiti standpoint, really like that stuff.
Thanks.
Um, your portraiture and other fine art related stuff is just it's phenomenal, dude. It's really cool to see somebody who's not from LA or New York that's doing really big art things. So I think it's really cool you come from where you come from.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no
You know,
problem, dude.
North Cackalack.
What's it been like kind of coming up out there? Did you grow up in North Carolina, or what's that kind of like?
Yeah, I moved down. I was born in like Northern Virginia and moved down when I was, a wee little boy to Winston-Salem, and kind of that's where I grew up and got my whole, you know, started dabbling in, you know, spraying and fucking shit up, and yeah, went from there, man.
Did you like draw or anything like as a kid, or did you have any art classes
Always.
early on? Yeah.
Yeah, my mom still has I think one of the first drawings I did in first grade hanging up. It was like me with like a fish on our pier. We lived on a lake and I used to fish every day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not quite the quality that I strive for these days, but yeah, I've been drawing and doodling. It's just been something that I can't escape from, like it just pulls me in. Anything creative wise, just I'm music and art. It's just always been my path, not anything, scientific or very huge money maker or anything. So my mom was kind of worried at the beginning, but she's pretty stoked where I'm at now, I guess.
Yeah, man, you're doing some really cool stuff and have been for a while. I did a bit of a deep dive on your Instagram and scrolled back through as far as I could go because I'm like, man, what do like the early Jack stuff kind of look like? It was cool, man, to see your progression and even to see how your graffiti's changed over the years too is super interesting.
Yeah, I think I have some photos of the early stuff. Um,
Tucked away.
no, I think it's like the very first couple posts or whatever from like late '90s, or that's when I first like got heavy into it.
What got you into like graffiti?
Honestly, I've told the story before, but it's kind of funny. I was in the Boy Scouts and my troop was like kind of the skater punk, derelicts, and we were always the ones who were like kind of getting into shit at the I forget what you call them, the camps and the rallies and whatnots. Um, but yeah, I had a couple friends in there. This kid, um, he wrote many names, but I think he settled with Iron towards the later years of his writing. But he got me into it, and I had dabbled with it, like just tagging under bridges and stuff, like stealing a couple spray paint cans from my stepdad's garage, and just going to you know just mess whatever I could up. But as far as like graffiti as a culture and more dialed into what it's all about, that came through the Boy Scouts, and kind of took control of we would just skate around and bomb or tag, or I wasn't doing anything substantial like piecing at the beginning, but I got hooked up with a couple, the OGC, like your name around and then like you'll end up meeting them. And I got hooked up with Evade. I think he's the Boston Evade, but he was in Winston-Salem for a while, and he kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot of the craft and that really, opened my eyes, like what you could do with a spray paint can, and well, a few of them, and just the rawness of like, painting where you're not supposed to be necessarily, and just the pure adrenaline I got like anytime I painted. And you know especially painting something, going from a piece of paper, or a small canvas in class, like that's the biggest thing you've ever done, to like a 15-foot piece. It's just like, this is awesome, I want to do this all the time. So
Yeah, definitely. I second that and can relate. It's definitely huge that you have somebody who kind of took you under and showed you some stuff. It's definitely, when you're first starting out, it's really like mysterious, and you're like breaking rules maybe you didn't know were even rules, or
mhm.
I say rules like very loosely. Yes, there's not necessarily rules in graffiti, but at the same time, there's like a standard hierarchy of process,
Yeah,
etc.
kind of
Um,
governs itself.
yeah, so like not knowing some of that and having some folks be like, yeah, maybe don't do it this way, or maybe go about it this way.
Mhm.
It helps progress you further, and move you along quicker. Um, so when you said like going from doing graffiti and painting something large from like a piece of paper, for instance, once you get to the point where you're doing like, let's say, murals or commissioned gigs or something like that, what was that transition like? And like, did you get that same sort of rush or adrenaline, or when you're sitting there rendering these highly detailed designs and portraits and stuff, what's the parallel to painting a graffiti piece like?
Yeah, so a little backstory. I got pretty in depth in graph and the culture of graffiti as a whole. It kind of took the place of Boy Scouts, and then music kind of took the place of that. So did the whole music thing. I played drums in a band and did that for like a decade or even longer. So I kind of dropped the full on graffiti mindset and went to music. I would still bring some cans on like tour and stuff, and catch tag here and there, but so I dropped. So there was like a good long time of me not painting, and then I think it was like 7 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, I started getting back into it. And a friend of mine, he's still a real good friend, little brother, little tall brother. He's like fucking 7 feet tall. He Mitch, he writes Nors. He offered me a like a collaboration gig. He had been doing commission murals for a while, and I was bartending and working in like music venues and stuff was like the only thing that I could really hold down job wise, like when I was off tour or whatever. So that was kind of the career I had, I guess, planned for the time being. But anyways, he offered me to do this job with him, and I went in, and he wanted me to do like some statuesque, like realism, but he didn't know what I could do so far. So he was like, just do your thing, man. And I tried it out, and I thought I like knocked it out of the park. I was like, holy shit, I can do this. This is dope. So once I found out that I could, I had a knack for like recreating, not necessarily like I was like, oh my God, I'm the best artist. I was just like, I can recreate this photograph on this wall pretty damn good. So that is what kind of put a fire under my ass. And I totally just shifted again from, working and bartending to straight up like, this is what I want to do. Um, it's kind of burnout on bartending at the time, anyways. But it was very similar to when I first started painting graffiti. It was like a rebirth of that feeling, and just going from not really having much stimulus like in creativity and stuff for a while to like having an overload. It definitely was the push I needed to really devote like all my time to it. So once I found out I had the niche, I was like, let's go, dude. Let's do more. Let's paint more. And we came up with this collaboration called Verses, and he was very graphic design oriented, and I was the realism guy. And I think it was pretty much like we saw like Tristan Eaton stuff and we were like, oh my God, this is the best, which it still is, but we were, probably biting him a lot. But that didn't last very long. He I guess was doing it as a side job for a while, and I was just like so like all about it that I just was like I want like more jobs. So I kind of took on more work, and like we're still really good friends, but it just like snowballed into me like wanting to paint um a harder subject. Or this is before I got even into portraiture. um I was like, yo, what else can I paint that's like super difficult and bigger? I want to go bigger. And yeah, and then I actually had a friend pass away from drunk driving, and um, the bar. Well, I don't think I was even asked to do it, but I painted his a really funny picture of him on this plywood, and um, I just had like the urge to do it and try it out, and that was the first portrait I really did. Uh, Full face portrait. And it was okay, but once you realize you could do it, you're like, okay, let's take a step farther. And I always thought that portraiture and like, even, the characters and stuff, and like, uh, graph productions, and that was like the kind of the anchor, like the main um idea. And then everything else was like, like the graffiti was the secondary part to like the main portrait to me. And now I feel like it's pretty much hand in hand, because I'm trying to devote as much time to both as I possibly can. I don't ever want to leave graffiti to do like murals, and I obviously can't leave murals just to do graffiti because that's how I pay the bills. But um, yeah, now I definitely uh, devote just as much time. If I'm not on a job and it's nice weather out and not raining, I'm out in a tunnel somewhere with overt or grower and painting. So like it's what I do, man.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool that you kind of took this kind of negative experience with your buddy passing away and kind of spun it into something that you're, expressing yourself creatively through, painting on those panels or something. And yeah, do you think about that kind of pivotal moment as you do murals to this day, or is it just kind of like far off in the background a little bit?
No, I mean it's all in my head, like a bunch of like kind of realizations. And it happened every single time I tried to like step out of my comfort zone. And that's when you kind of, I think, achieve a little more than you were expecting. So that's been my whole like model, I guess, from then on. And like I don't anytime I get a job or whatever, like I don't want to just do something just to make the client happy or do something like easy, paycheck. I want to, be able to put it in my portfolio and like, um, Like if I do a job and I can't, like, you know, I don't want to, post it, or put it like in my on my business account or whatever. Like, I don't feel like it was worth it, even if it was, a good paying job, because it's not like advancing me to where I want to be, and it definitely took a long time to be able to say no to certain things,
Yeah,
job
for
wise.
sure. Yeah, there's definitely a couple projects that it's just like, yeah, I did it, but I'm not like stoked on it. It just kind of lives in
There's
negative
definitely been a
space.
few, but it's, hopefully fewer and further between.
Definitely, yeah. Did you have any history like pre doing portraits or characters? Did you go to like art classes in high school, or did you attend like an art university or something to sharpen some of that, or
No,
what's your history kind of like with testing those
uh,
things
I
out?
took I took some like AP art classes in high school. AP portfolio, I think, was the class. And it was cool. It opened, my eyes in different routes or whatever. But I'm purely self-taught. Um, you know, at the beginning, I will say, like, YouTube and graph videos and everything. That's kind of the schooling that, I mean, if there was a technique or something that I was like super, curious about, I would try to figure out how it was done. Or um, but I think the best way for anything, um, craft wise, if you're like meant to do it, is just to kind of learn it yourself. And like, certain tricks of the trade are taught to you by somebody that, it's kind of passed down. Um, and that's how I'm about to be 40, and that's just kind of like the how I always was taught and viewed things. Like, there's a lot of people that, online, I'm sure you get a lot, all the messages like, what cap is that, what are you using in that, how did you get that, you know and I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people just wanting shortcuts, to the solid work, but it just takes decades
Yeah,
of playing drums.
yeah, man. Yeah, speaking of drums, do you still play? Like, is that something that you still frequent, or is that kind of like a past passion that, you can whip out if you need to, but otherwise it just kind of is like a nod to the path?
I can definitely whip it out if I need to, but it's the drums are in storage. I was playing, so like my main music career thing was with this band called Bludgeon, Bloodjinn, and they they actually did some reunion stuff this last year at Furnace Fest. And um, they're they reunited their like first lineup, which is pre me. Um, but yeah, that was the it was kind of thrashy metal stuff. But broke up a while, and then, like, I guess a few years ago, pre-COVID, me and my friends, some older friends, started a band called Night Sweats. And it was more like activist punk, you know, fuck you to authority. And it was really cool and fun. But COVID kind of, as many things, kind of made it dwindle into nothing. So,
Bummer.
but so I haven't played drums in since COVID. Wow.
Dang.
I need to break them things out.
Sure, sure. Would you say music and some of your interests in that regard have any influence on either graffiti or your fine art mural practice? And if so, how?
For sure, man. I think just the the metal influence that I've always had, like, kind of pushed me towards either the more, not necessarily morbid, but just darker, um, subjects, and um, it, I don't know, just more edgy. Like I don't want to paint cookie cutter shit. I don't want to paint, um, you know, it's kind of helped me think outside the box, and I guess try to be as much um, as a I don't know, just I don't know how to put it, because I've definitely done some stuff that's reminiscent of what I'm saying I'm not doing, but it I don't know, it helped me, it pushed me towards like being a little more, I guess, unique. And it's funny because like I'll post videos, like process videos or something with like a Meshuggah song or like Converge or something like that, and like people are like, what the fuck, graffiti's supposed to have hip hop behind it, and I'm like, no it doesn't, man, it does not. A lot of my upbringing and friends in the scene were like hardcore and graffiti kind of went hand in hand, which is always cool too. I still have a lot of hardcore friends uh, that paint, and so it's always been that side of things, like hardcore and like super underground. Hip hop was kind of introduced to me at the same time, and so it's definitely I'm influenced by both of them,
For
but
sure.
more so metal, I would say.
Nice, nice. Yeah, in here in the Midwest, there's like a parallel to that for sure. I
Mhm.
feel like the previous graffiti generations, like some of the first era of graffiti here, it was really hip hop focused. There was a lot of like Chicago parallel going on. Like as Chicago's scene kind of blossomed, it sort of took off. But, once my generation and some of the people above me started painting, it was like, yeah, just hardcore kids, a bunch of straight edge kids painting graffiti. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting the styles that come out of like these more metal influenced artists or writers, if you will.
Yeah.
What would you say in North Carolina? Like, I mean, I've only visited there a few times, so I don't know per se like what the art scene or kind of state of art and murals is like there. But when you started doing some of your murals, were you kind of going against the grain in some way, or like what was some of that process like trying to develop your sort of style and the things you do and also build clientele, et cetera? Like, was it hard to sort of get the ball moving and get the snowball building?
Yeah, so I was super like naive and novice like when I started doing the large format murals, and um didn't really know a lot of there was just so much to learn, the business side of things, and like going from graffiti and stuff to learning the ins and outs of murals, and how in certain cities it's very cutthroat, um, on like getting jobs and people undercutting and not charging enough. And um, there's the way I saw it, when I first started was like Asheville was like the graffiti hub. You have all there was like Mom's Crew, there's Lord's Crew, Crew. It's just like a lot of the writers that I thought, well, still do, and just had tremendous respect for. That's where they were. So like Asheville was the hub, the graffiti hub, and then Charlotte was like the mural hub, because there's so much money in Charlotte. It's a banking capital. It's a extremely fast growing city. So there's just like a huge demand for it. So Matt Moore was a huge inspiration for me. Um, when I first started, I just kind of took him as like, you're the top notch dude. Like, what can I learn from you? Um, and he gave me some ins and outs, and you know, even offered me some work and stuff. But um, during that time, I'm painting stuff, in Greensboro and um, starting a little bit of a scene. There was a contractor or a developer here by the name of Marty Kotis. He does Kotis street art. Um, Now he basically was bringing in all these uh, top-notch uh, artists from all over. You know, he had people kind of under his wing that were telling him who to bring and stuff, but you could tell he had like a huge interest in you know, street art, and I wouldn't say necessarily graffiti, but just the ruggedness of, uh wall art per se. And so he started bringing in all these people, and there was kind of this buzz about it. I was super stoked because like every once in a while, I'd have like a artist that I, worshipped come to town and paint a mural, and I'm like, holy shit, this is Greensboro, dude. Like, it's a big city. It's like, I guess close to 300,000 people, but it's not huge, and definitely doesn't have like a raging art scene. So like the fact of these people coming in and stuff, like I met Doze, uh, Adnate, Berlin, Mears, Sloke, like all within like a couple of years of me starting, and it was just it was sick, dude.
That's crazy.
Just being able to watch them work and like just shoot the shit. I'm kind of shy, so like, I don't like bugging people when they're working, but fortunately, a lot of them were very like Marty would introduce me as like, here's a local artist up and coming. He'd love to chat with you and stuff. So I'd have like that shoe in.
Nice.
But yeah, I definitely learned a lot of stuff. And over the last few years, Greensboro's like kind of just popped off between my work and a lot of other mural artists that are just busting ass out here. But yeah, it I think last year Greensboro was like in Men's Health magazine as like is one of the top 10 like street art destinations in the US or
Crazy.
whatever. Yeah, in that tiny span. So like I will say Codis has done a huge part of that. But yeah, dude, North Carolina is really, I think, got some incredible talent, and I'm super fortunate to be, in the growing scene that we have, kind of helping it take shape.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I didn't know any of that history. That's awesome. It's I definitely like to visit and see more stuff around out there. Um, and yeah, I've been following Marty for quite some time, and I've seen some of the projects that you and him and a few other artists have done, and it's crazy, man. I think originally I didn't know what cities some of those were in, so I assumed they were like, I don't know, New York or somewhere like
Yeah,
something like that. And then when I find it's like, oh, North Carolina, no way, man.
yeah.
It's so cool.
Greensboro's cool, man. There's a it's not to the point where there's like street art tours and stuff like that, but um, if you take a drive down Battleground, there's murals on both sides of the road all the way down. That's a large portion of Codis property. And he uh, really, if he has a property, he looks at it as like a canvas as well. It's awesome.
That's so cool, especially to like befriend somebody like that who has the ability to, push art along like that's super cool. And I've really liked some of the projects you and him specifically have done. That like the one that you did that has like the apple and the snake in the hand on that
Yeah.
Eden building, man, that one was really cool. How long did that one take you?
Uh, it was, I mean, it was a real like simple composition. There was no background. It was just black. So it was a lot faster than you would think. But I actually had to go, I started it and then had to go out of town for another job or a festival and then come back and paint it. So it took a few weeks, but it probably all in all like 7 or 8 days. Um, but that was fun. That was a whole project that he had too. He owns he bought this giant shopping complex in Eden and just had the mindset, I want to turn it into an art gallery, a street art, open air gallery, per se. And it was pretty funny coming from the Bible Belt in a very small town in Eden, and having all this like kind of religious oriented, your take on religious orientation. And there was a lot of very scared, kind of um, ultra Christian people that there's this one, I want to give her a shout out. I don't know her name, but she went around and filmed everybody's piece and described how the piece was tied to Satanism and how we're pushing Satanism on like the whole town. And it was hilarious.
Oh
She didn't
no.
do my piece, but she did a lot of other pieces. And like the doodle grid that people were using, she said that was all like satanic um, tablets and designs and stuff. It was. I'm gonna show you the link. I'll send you the link after this. But oh man, you gotta check it out.
That's wild, man. I imagine it's, just from hearing you explain it, it's like a relatively smaller town per se, so these massive artworks are like, even regardless of religious affiliation, just having massive pieces of artwork painted in your small town,
Mhm.
it's something that's going to garner a response regardless. So the
All
fact
at
that,
once too. Like
yeah,
he
like,
did, like in over a span of a month, he had like I think 30 something artists come and paint. So like,
yeah,
yeah,
for people to
these
see
people were
that,
like, "What the hell?" But
yeah, definitely.
a lot of them just love it. Like it had a first culture shock initially, but I still get tagged in dudes like with their cars in front of the that golden apple piece. And so I think it's definitely welcomed now that they understand and kind of get the vibe and get
What?
that it's not the coming of Satan to take over their town.
Yeah, was it Marty's idea to kind of, given that the town is named Eden and has this kind of biblical backing to it, to try to do artworks that are relatively in a similar language to some of the
Yeah.
conversation out there?
So yeah, the whole project I think was called uh, instead of Garden of Eden, Graffiti of Eden or something. And
I could see how that could rub a few folks the wrong way.
yeah, so but that's how Marty is. He's like he definitely isn't walking on eggshells, with his commissions and stuff like that. Art's supposed to make an impact, and whether it pisses you off or makes you cry, like it's doing its thing, and um, but yeah, so he definitely did that. He didn't let anybody really go overboard, but he wanted people to express their kind of their view, and their take on kind of that story, and without you know putting too much religious symbolism in there. Just kind of like, I don't know, it it
It seems
definitely rubs some people the wrong way, but yeah,
it
I
seems
mean,
like a very tough line to dance.
yeah,
Like it very easily could go one way or the other.
that's Marty for you.
Hey, I think it's cool
He
that
kills
he
it.
he takes the drive to do something like that. A lot of people would just
Man,
steer away from something.
that dude has the vision so much. Like, it's crazy. The projects that he talks about doing is just, it's mind boggling. He's a true, a lot of the muralists that come to town and stay and paint and meet him and that know him and hang out with him call him like the unicorn of like, you know, um, people who commission art and like curators, and he's just, it's crazy. He'll ask you when you first start talking to him, and if he's interested in commissioning you, he's like, what's the what's your dream mural, or what's the craziest thing you've ever wanted to do? And at one point he bought a fire truck to load it up with paint and spray a wall with it. It was crazy, man. That dude's a hoot.
That's wild, man. That's super cool that there's a guy out there that does that, who's just down to commission cool projects. And I bet being an artist, having someone say like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I'm down to fund it, whatever that is. Let's make it
Exactly.
happen.
And
That's huge.
he's the man, dude. You know, um, every town that has somebody doing big things and with big visions and making waves, obviously there's a lot of hate from you know certain people, especially with developers and stuff that are making, you know I guess, well, gentrifying certain areas and stuff, and making it, the city, really grow. Like he has a lot of people who give him a hard time, but from where I stand, he's really helped my career blossom, and other artists you know do things that they would never ever be able to do, which is fucking awesome. So
Yeah, that's super cool, man. And at the end of the day, like, it's just paint too. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it kind of cracks me up how people will get enraged over just like art on a wall. It's like, bro,
Oh, dude, it's
okay, let's
crazy.
just paint it gray again and pretend like, I don't know. It's just
I'm not going to get into the actual
ethics of street art.
happenings, but like I there was a small group, very small group of people um, in Greensboro that tried to have me and Marty canceled, and they went as far as to put a mural that I had painted on a front of a newspaper, a publication out here, and just wrote a just scathing article on it, and it was crazy, but all
That's
that shit.
wild.
Yeah, it's people really lose their shit over some paint.
That's unbelievable, dude.
Yeah,
It's a wild time we live in, man. Yeah, that's why I try to I stay away from like representational stuff for the most part.
yeah,
Not directly to avoid the discussion of things being represented that are real in the world, but yeah, that's a battle I admire you for taking on. And painting
I've
popular
learned.
figures. Like, I'm sure there's a lot that comes with that because people identify with that
Yeah,
stuff very strongly.
dude, it's very hard. Like, no matter what you paint, especially if it's figurative, like somebody's gonna find something negative about it. But I think as long as your heart's there and you're, do it in good form, and you know really make sure you're not being problematic, then you're completely fine, man. And I've learned that research is very heavily needed for anything, history wise and stuff like that. And you can't just slap something on the wall without knowing what you're slapping on the wall. So
For sure. And I think with your work as well, like, I mean, even if it's something like, let's say I hate a specific, you know, famous person, or I hate this actor, or I hate this rapper or this musician. You come to my town, you paint a mural of said person. Sorry, but you can't deny, like, dude, that's painted flawlessly. Like, even if you don't like it, like, come on, bro. Like, it's rendered properly. The shadows, the lighting, everything are on point. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's something that, without question, regardless of context, like, the dude's back, I'm sure you're out there cooking in the sun for weeks on end, rendering, every skin pore, every fleck of hair, eyebrow, everything. Like,
yeah, man. Well, yeah, it I appreciate it. It's I'm not gonna just regardless of who it is, I'm going to give it my all. But it's definitely been, kind of hit or miss sometimes with these commissions, because a lot of like what people don't understand is a lot of the larger murals, like very few of them are literally just like me paint. They're mostly commissioned, so it's somebody's idea, um and that comes to me, and wanting me to either be their paintbrush, or honor this person, or and that's a route that I kind of accepted early on, and have strayed away from it as much as I can. You know it's it's kind of, you don't want to be that guy that just you know paints people that were loved that passed away, like. But anytime somebody that is beloved does pass, ever since the beginning of when I started painting portraits, I have hundreds of requests, like, and people hitting me up like, yo, you gotta paint this person, like, please, please, please. And some of them I'd rather paint somebody that's alive and thriving. But you know some of the pieces that I have painted, like, really really helped the local community and friends, whether it's uh a famous person or a local person that passed. Like, it's really, it's it's a different kind of feeling, um you know to paint something that's like has that much impact, really, on people, like healing and being able to connect with someone that they loved. And it's, there's a lot of ups and downs and pros and cons, but uh you know i I see the good and what that can bring. And some of them become like huge cultural landmarks, man, like. And I don't know, it's
Where
really
do,
cool to see that.
where do you like draw the line on something like that? Like, is it kind of like a project to project basis of, is this something I want to take on at this time, or do I have some sort of connection with this person at all from your perspective, or,
Yeah,
how do you say yes and how do you say no?
it's a mix, of like what I feel, personally, to this subject, um or to the person. But yeah, I mean, there's countless people that, like, when that X 10,
Right?
yeah, uh
That guy.
when he like passed, like probably more than I've ever been like hit up to paint. And like, I didn't really have any interest in doing that, just from what I had known about him. And there's just, it's kind of hard to,
Because you're
um
tied to that person. You paint that person. It's like, oh, well, well, he approves of whatever this person is or does or
yeah,
represents.
so
Or, I mean, not
you
to
know
say that you're tied to that per se, but like, yeah, you probably have to be somewhat calculated with some of the folks that you choose to do.
yeah. And it's hard too, like, I don't want to take it as a commission, like, I don't want to
Make
make
money off it.
off somebody's passing. But there's time that goes into it. So most of the ones I paint, or I have painted, um are definitely on my own time and dime. So uh there's been some commissions, but yeah, it's I'd rather paint somebody that's rocking and rolling now while they're still alive, and celebrating them before they pass. But being a portraitist, and portraiture is what I do. So I'm obviously going to be approached anytime there's a big loss, to
Hmm.
honor that person. So some people understand that and some people don't, but you know, I've seen the impact good wise that it can make, and it far outweighs some haters, and
That's
people.
cool.
So
Do you, I guess I'm trying to find out how to phrase this question. Given that you're self-taught and given that you've developed some of these processes for murals, given the doodle grid and utilizing techniques like that, all of that stuff is super new, super fresh in terms of, applying artworks massively. Like I don't think Michelangelo used a doodle grid, right? But,
oh,
the process of applying large scale artworks and even just portraiture in general does have a dense history and, classically goes back hundreds of years in terms of the development of art. Is that an area of interest to you, like some of the history of art and some of these like famous portrait artists, and like, is that stuff you've studied before? Or is it just kind of like, yeah, it's a part of the past, it's cool, but you know,
no, I have tremendous respect for, you know, the history and what's created what's now. Um, as far as my like knowledge of history in the past, and a lot of, you know, classic artists, I would say is, minimal. I never really took any of those classes besides basic what they teach you in art class in high school, which is pretty much, you know, an easy, whatever you call it, credit or whatever for most people. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've always kind of just studied and looked at what I like. So if there's a, a writer that um, I was really like into, then I would, definitely check them out. But I'd say as far as history goes, like, uh, yeah, I'm probably not the most knowledgeable,
that's
but
okay.
in specifics and stuff,
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was curious just because your art is playing a massive role in like contemporary muralism, realism murals, like that guy who I think his Instagram is like Smug One or something.
Yeah,
He does like
he's a goat.
insane portraits and stuff. And like I just feel like, the street art happening is a major cultural and art developmental like thing that's happened. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know, sometimes as an artist I try to reflect on like kind of what that experience is like given all the previous history that's happened, like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like your works could be compared to, the Renaissance greats in terms of application, you know,
Shit.
contrasts, like lighting, texture. Like there's so many techniques and stuff you're utilizing on a daily basis rendering these things that, I feel like a classical painter, who's worked in oil and stuff, they probably would be speaking a similar language in terms of how you render some of this stuff. I don't
Well,
know. It might be cool to look into some of that. I don't know if art
yeah.
history classes are of super interest to you. I know for me, art history classes were mad boring, dude. Like I full on was
Yeah.
not having a good time.
Nap time.
Yeah, but there's a few classes I took where I was like, oh, like today, what we're learning about is actually like mad interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know. Just was wanting to pick your brain, see how that kind of is on your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a huge difference in the greats and then somebody that, just kind of looks at a photo and recreates it, which is unfortunately a lot of the times what I do. But I'll edit the photo and change some of the all the lighting and stuff and make it fit the composition. But in the simple dumbed down version of it, like a lot of the main parts of what I'm painting is, from a reference photo. And whether I took the reference photo myself or, I asked to use it or whether I found it on Google, it's more so, recreating and making it my own, but I couldn't paint, um, if I just had a few cans and somebody just said, go to that wall and do a master portrait, I'd run away.
Yeah, I feel that. Same,
I
same.
go paint some letters.
Do you feel like you have like a newfound appreciation for graffiti given that like you spend so much time doing these portraits and illustration things that like graffiti is part of that like escape? You don't have a client, you don't have anybody telling you what rules to do. And, at least for me, I kind of feel like it's quite a release.
Yeah. So that's my only true, like, besides like music and stuff, that's my only true, like, pure expression. Like, most of my pieces, I'll freestyle. I'll pick the color palette at the crib, and you know, but it's all like very on the spot, and it just comes out, and that allows for a lot of failing, but it's it's learning what works and what doesn't. And I love graffiti so much because there's not a certain thing as a perfect piece. There's always something that can be better, and there's a lot of failing, so it just makes me want to try harder and harder. And at the beginning, you can see like the progression I've had with letters per se. I feel like as gotten a lot of more dialed in the last couple years. But yeah, at the beginning, I had no confidence whatsoever. I just knew that I loved painting graffiti, and I could make a clean piece, whether the letters were whack or the colors weren't really working. um I'd make it super clean, and that's something I've always like strived for, and kind of been, I guess, known for, is whether or not it's like the dopest piece, it's squeaky fucking clean, dude.
Definitely. Cutting back lines, etc.
Oh, dude, yeah, razors. um but no, I in the past couple of years, I've really like kind of come to the conclusion that I do love. I have a love for graffiti, so I can't neglect that, and I really need to pursue that art form as much as I am making a living. So like I said earlier, like any time that I'm not on a job, I'm and it's paintable weather outside, I'm out painting. It just I sometimes have to drag these dudes to paint with me, because there's only like a handful of riders, well, piecing riders, around here. And so if those three people can't paint, then I'm going solo. But
Nice.
yeah, dude.
That's what's up, man. Do you feel like I'm trying to think of like a way to ask this. Um do you feel like your graffiti and your like mural practice will kind of morph somehow in the future, or like I
Yeah,
think you've done some where they're kind of both in there in
I've
some way, right?
I've always wanted to do that. I don't necessarily feel like it's going to be letters and portraiture combined per se. I've tried to do that, and it's still far from like what I envision. I don't know. There's always like, for any artist to strive to create your own path, and to like have your own niche, and your own coin style. And that's something I've always struggled with. But uh I think that's coming more with what I can do in realism. So I don't think it's going to be like a combination of, but I think it's going to be like me taking my realism elements and applying it to the graffiti. So like, you know,
Hmm.
um, not necessarily like 3D style pieces, but I don't know. Like, I think,
You have a lot of like lighting and shading knowledge up cooking in your brain with
yeah,
portraiture all the
yeah.
time. You're
Well,
like, man, this graffiti stuff's pretty simple.
so with no, no, so my favorite style that I've seen, and like I've always wanted to try it without biting, and just kind of do my own take with it, is like Ewoks, like organic, like application to his letters. I think it's the most unique thing I've ever seen, and I love it to death. And so I've always been like kind of obsessed with trying to figure that out, but not blatantly, using him just as inspiration. But that's something that I could see myself like kind of, you know, kind of using the same kind of a realism application to it. But I don't know. Anytime I try to think about blending the two, it's one of those things that's going to happen when it does.
Yeah,
I'm
don't force
not,
it.
I can't force it. So
That's cool, man. I can respect that a lot because like you also don't want to just like commercialize or like you know try to pull money out of like utilizing graffiti per se. Probably like you probably enjoy that it's rooted in like the classic history of graffiti and don't want to be like a sellout per se, just doing graffiti murals for the rest of your life, right?
no, I mean, well, I mean, shit, if I could get paid for just painting graffiti, oh, I'd be, I'd be loving it. But no, I don't know. I've always had that mindset, and love for the classic graffiti structure, and um, so like anything like super new school is, uh, it's got to be the right combination and right thing for me to really like dig truly. But yeah, that Ewok style was, it just insane to me. And but I've always been just like the, ABC style, you know classic graffiti, piece structure.
I love that though. I think you're close enough to New York and like the East Coast ish that some of that rings through in some of your style, which I love to see that. Like regional styles have kind of somewhat gone away, with the internet and accessibility to the entire world of graffiti. So seeing some classic like freight based solid structure is super refreshing to me. I
Thank
love
you.
that kind of stuff.
It's the strive for the funk. You gotta have the funk in your letters, man.
Definitely. One last question I had before we go. I was curious. I sent you, I think, a direct message when you were doing a mural of like a T Rex, and like he had like so much texture on his face, and like the background had a bunch of texture and stuff. And I was like, dang, dude. Like, I guess I asked myself in my head, if I was Jeks, which I'm not, would I reach a point where I am tired of just like painlessly rendering like so many details of like a T-Rex's skin or something? Like, when you're doing these complex projects, like, do you get tired of like rendering stuff like that? Like, and is that where graffiti's kind of your escape, or where are you at with that after doing
No,
them for so
I
long?
I am completely obsessed with, like, if I have a super 4K, you know, ultra high definition reference photo, I'm gonna get in there, and it's gonna be a way, way better piece than if I just have this like kind of screenshot blurry shit that a client gives me that they want painted. Like, um, so like my attention to detail is what sets me apart. So I'm kind of obsessed with that detail. So when I go in, like all that tiny rendering and pores and stuff, that's what like, yeah, I look for in a reference photo. And because I know the more information I have, um, photo wise, and like, you know, is I can really translate that on the wall. It's not going to be perfect, but like I think where I shine is having all that information and then me applying it to the wall, and like there's just that transfer of information is I don't know. I guess that's what sets me apart, I guess, from some other artists. I don't like cutting corners or like rounding the edges. I like to make it exact, as much as I can. And there's definitely a medium between, like, I'm working on this canvas now, and like it's for I got a commission after I posted the overlay of these two skulls, because I wasn't selling that one, and I'm doing this one now, and it's like 10 times more detailed. And well, I used a different skull. I bought this skull from uh this guy, Scourge something something on, but he has like this skull shop, and he does all these like um
Has a
and
skull shop.
he makes literally human skulls for a living, and he sells real skulls too. Those are super expensive, but yeah, I got this.
What a time to be alive.
Hey dude, I
That's
mean,
awesome.
there's a demand. But yeah, I bought this dope skull foam, and I've been using it for reference photos, but like I'm definitely gonna buy one that's got a little less details and information, because this one's taken me forever, dude. And once I show it, I think, you know, there should be some drop jaws, I hope, man, because I spent some damn time on this thing. But
That's
uh
awesome, dude.
yeah, dude. But the back to what you were asking, the more information I can, pull from the photo and put it on the wall, the better it's going to be. And um so I don't necessarily get tired. The only thing I get tired of is fucking hair, dude. I hate hair. Like facial hair is fun because it's just little, you know, little chips, but dude, long flowing hair is like the bane of my existence. And it's so hard, especially like when you're on a lift and or a ladder.
You
Just
can't just
a
do a
a
long
long
swoop.
continuous like line with flow and everything, and keeping the diet the thickness of the line like consistent is just, dude.
That's
Um,
crazy.
Hair is the worst, but
What's your favorite portion of portraiture to do? Eyes, maybe?
definitely the eyes. The nose is really fun. The lips are always, it depends if it's like a good, like I love female lips because there's always like a little bit of a gloss on it usually, and like they're voluptuous a lot more than men's usually. And um but eyes are just, they're the titties of the face, man. They're the windows of the soul, and there's so much information in there. And I could spend like hours and hours and hours more than I needed to on eyes. But it's the thing I go to first on every mural. I always paint the eyes first, and then follow through with the rest. But
That's awesome, man. Definitely shows. I mean, some of the reflections in those are just gnarly, dude. Like
yeah,
full on looks like a photograph.
dang. It's always fun adding colors too, like if you're doing full color, like because there's like, if you zoom in on an actual iris, there's just insane amount of tiny little bits of color and weird connective tissue and stuff. So like you can really go ham on it. I haven't had a chance to do like a giant eye. I've always kind of wanted to, but
That'd be crazy.
yeah, just go gnarly.
Hit up Marty.
Hey, dude, he'll probably hear this and be like, "Eye
Let's
project
do
coming
it.
right up."
I'll do the background.
Yeah, dude, come on. Oh, by the way, for all your listeners, he built this barn on his property. Well, it was an existing barn, but he turned it into a art loft, an artist loft. So he has like half of the barn is like, enclosed. It's a house. It's got multiple rooms. It can like sleep like I think 15 or some crazy number, multiple bathrooms, like an office with printers and laser cutters and all this. It's basically designed for like an artist to come and stay for however long and
Like a
just,
residency?
yeah. Um, well, but I mean, obviously you wouldn't be painting the barn because it's already painted, but there's like a spray room, and that's what I use as my like studio
Nice.
area. But it's got a fan that sucks all the fumes out, so I can paint there all day. And uh, yeah, it's great. So that's another part of when you get commissioned by him to come to town, you stay in the barn, and it's just sick.
That's so cool. Does the barn have murals on it?
Yeah, Damian Mitchell did this dope one on the front of it with like this dude facing a bunch of like riot police, and he's got like two cans with flames shooting out of them. Pretty cool. And then there's some graffiti on each side, but it hasn't been really painted in a while.
Nice.
But he has this thing called barn bombers. I thought it was pretty funny, but whenever he usually has people stay in like kind of like groups, so like he'll bring in like 4 or 5 artists at a time. It just adds for more of a fun kind of summer camp atmosphere at the barn. And but he'll do like this like 15-minute, you get 15 minutes to paint, like speed painting. And then he'll hang up all these canvases, so he has like countless canvases from all these artists, local and from far away, hanging up everywhere. So it's dope.
That's so rad, man. That's super
Definitely a cool
cool.
place.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out when I come down there sometime.
Definitely.
Well, Jex, I appreciate the chat, man. This was fun. I definitely have had these questions in my head for a while and was curious to hear some of your take on it, man. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming on, dude. It was a blast.
Pleasure talking to you, man. Hopefully we can link up in the future and rock something out.
Definitely, man. Those tunnels look like a blast. I need to get
Oh,
those like gator things or whatever they're called.
the waiters?
Waiters, yeah,
You gotta
gators.
get waiters. You come to North Carolina, you gotta have some waiters.
I get some of them waiters, man.
Get some of them
Water,
waiters.
water's running quick down here, brother.
Be getting that creek water in your britches.
Creek water in the britches. Well, cool, man. I think that concludes the podcast.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, dude.